In order to maintain a small wardrobe and to keep it curated, there's 3 major things you need to do. And then once you do those 3 things, there's 3 major things you need to look out for. So let's get into that. The first thing that you need to do is choose your own style. For instance, some people need to keep neutral colors because that works for them. Some people, like me, don't like t-shirts. Your personal preferences will matter here and should not be ignored. Part of the reason so many people are overwhelmed with clutter, yet underwhelmed with options in their wardrobe, is because they abandon their own style to keep up with trends and the style preferences of other people. Take your age and your life stage into consideration when building this wardrobe. For instance, being in college is different than being a young professional just starting out. Being a stay-at-home mom is different than being a single woman with an office job. Your style is likely going to be reflected based on what you do most of the time. It's really important to dress accordingly and appropriately. Many people feel they don't have any clothing options simply because they heavily invest in clothes that don't fit the daily occasion or what I call uniform of where they are going or who they are. So let's get started. It's tremendously helpful to choose a few words to describe your ideal lifestyle. For me, those words are elegant, classic, and comfortable. When I started cleaning out my closet, if a piece did not align with those words, I tossed it. For instance, sexy and vulgar items that I own that revealed too much had to be purged. Why? Because sexy is not elegant. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But remember, that's not one of the words that I'm using to describe my style. And similarly, uncomfortable clothes, no matter how elegant or classic they may have been, had to be removed because comfort is a priority. This doesn't only apply to the clothes you're getting rid of, but also to anything that's coming in. These style words are your new level of discernment to control your impulse buying, keep you from instantly purchasing pieces you've thought about and considered to be a good idea, and to help you focus on where your wardrobe is going. This is important because even after identifying your style, you'll find that sometimes you like a piece so much and there's a temptation to buy it. But having that base idea of your 3 style words in mind can be the first important step to evaluating whether or not you should purchase something. The next thing you need to consider doing is stop buying new items. Stop shopping. This only creates more problems as you're working to solve the one that you have, the one where you have so many clothes, yet nothing to wear. The reason you want to actually stop shopping is because while you're reshopping your closet, figuring out what to keep, what to toss, you don't want the distraction of bringing in new items that will cause confusion and likely justify you holding on to more than what you need because you suddenly have something to match these things that you didn't have anything to match with before, even if they don't fit your style. Think about the clothes in your closet you haven't worn in ages. When you go shopping during this phase, you may actually start to convince yourself that you should keep those items based on something you found out shopping that would pair perfectly with it. But the truth is, you still won't wear it because you don't actually like it. If you did, you would have worn it a lot more frequently rather than never. So in this plan of action, you need to choose your style words and stop shopping. Let's move on. How do you declutter your closet? This is the fun part. The best approach to not making this hard on yourself is to go through every single item you own by trying it on. It sounds like it's a lot, but it's necessary. Anything that you try on that's ill-fitting or just underwhelming, as in you don't like the way that it looks on you, plan to get rid of it. Don't skip this step. It's important to love everything you own. This is part of the reason you don't wear about 50 to 60% of what you own now. You don't actually love it. You probably don't even like it. You may have actually only bought it because it was on sale, or because you saw someone else wearing it, not because you absolutely loved it and believed that it would positively contribute to your wardrobe. If it still has tags and falls in this category, return it and get your money back. Consider it a bonus. Otherwise, organize a sell pile and a giveaway pile. Word to the wise, Selling clothes is really going to be limited to high quality items. This is a great step to remember doing because it also reminds you not to waste your money on things that are a poor investment moving forward. For instance, anything purchased from fast fashion retailers or made from poorly constructed materials, they won't get you the return on investment, both in wear time and resale value should you ever decide to resell it. Also, realizing that some items aren't even able to be resold will help you to be more inspired to choose better options for yourself. Because you do deserve it. If no one would buy it, shouldn't you ask why or if it's even worth your money? Whatever you decide to keep or not get rid of yet can then go through the process of aligning with your style words. For instance, there were a lot of head-turning and wowing items left when I started decluttering, but many of them were just too sexy or wildly uncomfortable for one reason or another. Either it was too skimpy or required constant adjustment, a sure sign that you should not keep something because it's a poor fit, too small, or just inappropriate for my body. And since they didn't fit my style words, I had to get rid of them. And all of these items that fit me but were not a good match for my style words, I tossed by selling or by giving away. And that's what you need to do too. Now here's a tip for this. If you find the idea of doing this in one sitting to be daunting, you could always break it up into a 2-3 day project over the course of time, but you must commit to whatever time frame you set for yourself. The benefit of doing this part one time is to create that awareness and to build momentum so that you're inspired to continue going forward. We don't want to move forward before finishing this part. So next, let's talk about how to properly evaluate your style and what to buy. Now, this step can get a little tricky because I think this is where people start to adapt too heavily to other people's style preferences. It's important to pull inspiration, especially if you're going to be reinventing yourself into a style category that you've never lived or quite possibly have never even purchased clothing to reflect. And I don't really recommend that you do that. I recommend that you start where you are. It's important at this point to find what I would call models or representations of how you would want this style to be reflected on you. This is where you evaluate body type and style choice. So you're going to use our friend, the internet, to find style icons. For example, in my case, remember my style words: elegant, classic, comfortable. And I'm a more curvy body type. So for me, I have to search elegant hourglass ladies or classic hourglass ladies or comfortable hourglass fashion. Here's the thing. You'll get a lot of returns with these searches. It's now your job to go through them and look at what stands out to you. What looks like something that's appealing to you and why? I would choose 10 looks from each of those searches based on your words. So that's a total of 30, 10 for each word, and print them out or favorite them, save them to your device. Grab your notebook and let's get started. Now, the first and most obvious thing to write down: commonalities across your outfits. You have 30. Are they all wearing blazers? Is there a particular cut of the shirt that stands out to you? Is it t-shirts? Is it button-ups? Are there dresses, long skirts? Only paying attention to style and not color here, just style. Find the reasons these looks stood out to you and make note of them. This part is important so that you can explain why you like a style or what you like about a style instead of just copying it. Copying the style will likely result in you feeling the same way that you did when you started. We have to be able to identify what exactly it is that we like about a particular style. There are 3 key takeaways from this exercise for me that may be helpful to note for you, as you may have your own realizations, but here were mine. The first, don't lose your feminine curves, particularly your waistline. Clothing does not need to be overly revealing in order to be feminine. So something that I noticed before I made this transition, I always felt like to be attractive, I had to be more revealing and I had to have always wearing form-fitting clothing. But what I found is that's not the case. What I loved about the searches that I did when I was identifying my style was that all of these looks really enhanced and embraced their feminine curves. And I found that it's really important for my body shape to really focus on the waistline. And again, nothing too tight, nothing too revealing, but just making sure that I don't lose my waist in my clothing, because if I do, I can tend to look a lot bigger than I am. The second is to focus on maintaining clothing that's always in style. For me, that's where the classic comes in. Timeless attire over trendy pieces. Again, this is going to look different from you. If you're into trends and streetwear and things of that nature, that's fine. But for me, I know that when I get my wardrobe together, I don't like to shop regularly. So I like to have the same items year in, year out, and only focusing on replacing those items over time. The third, clothing can be comfortable without looking frumpy or too relaxed. I noticed that out of the outfits that I selected for my exercise, I really liked that they were all sharp and tailored looks. Because of my body type, I prefer not to lose my shape in clothes that are oversized because they just make me look bigger. If you have a smaller frame, you may actually like the look of some baggier or loose-fitting clothing. But for me, femininity was very important for my look, and I often lose that when I wear baggier clothes. So I knew immediately that focusing on accenting my waist would be important. I noticed it was easy to do with belts and tying garments around my waist, as well as focusing on more high waist pants and high waist bottoms. Another thing I noticed is that all the looks I admired actually showed minimal skin. That's what made them elegant. And finally, all of the items were pieces that would stand the test of time. They weren't trendy, but they were items that I noticed never really go out of style. And if they were, it wouldn't be problematic to wear them whenever the trend faded. The way I tested this was looking at women through different time periods to see if they were wearing those or similar items across the decades. And I also remembered growing up, what are some of the things that I saw people wearing and what are people wearing now? And finally, in the comfort category, it became apparent to me that we associate comfort with things like tracksuits, sweats, hoodies, workout attire. But in this part of the journey, and when I started to implement these changes, I realized that you can have clothes that are both comfortable and elegant. And that also screamed luxury, class, self-respect. I was also tired of looking inappropriate for the occasion. In other words, being overly casual in situations where I shouldn't have been. And I think this realization just came with time and growing up and learning that there are some things that are more appropriate than others. You'll probably learn this too. But there are clothes that you can invest in that will bring you just as much comfort when wearing them as you would if you were in your favorite pair of pajamas or sweats. Now, colors are the last evaluation because it just depends on the person. If you prefer to have lots of color in your wardrobe, this is perfectly fine. But I do still suggest that you know what colors work really well for you and lean into those. Remember, in order to be effective in this process, you have to make sure everything you own is absolutely flattering, perfectly functional, and coordinates well with other items you own. I also believe that having staple, neutral pieces can go a long way in balancing this out and provide you with more options with fewer items. The easiest and most inexpensive or free way to do this style identity is to take these very looks that you saved and recreate them in a store dressing room, piece by piece. If you find that most of the looks work for your body and are flattering and impressive to you, it's safe to say that you found your style. Now, don't think you now have to purchase all of these items because you don't, and I don't recommend that you do that. You just want to see in real time how these clothing items that you picked online actually display on you in real life. So what do you include in your wardrobe? Now you have an idea of what looks good on you and what your ideal style is, so you now use this to build your new wardrobe. What did you keep? Do you have a good amount of tops and bottoms? The more evenly distributed options for both that you have, the more likely you are to have more options for your wear of your clothing items. So start with what you have and make a wish list of items you think will complement your wardrobe well. Be specific. Instead of saying more pants, say black high waist, straight leg trousers. Instead of blue shirt, say blue silk button up. You get the idea. Be as specific as you possibly can so that when you do find these items, they stand out to you. Now, when you do go shopping for your wish list, only shop for items on the list. Also, you don't have to buy the items right away. I recommend waiting, unless it's somewhere like a thrift store where there's no guarantee that it'll be there tomorrow. Get into the practice of having a waiting period. The length of time will vary based on what you need. It can be as little as 48 hours or up to 30 days. I typically prefer to wait 30 days if I'm shopping for something out of season, because if I forget about it after 30 days, it proves that I did not need it. However, if I'm still thinking about it after that 30 days, it's likely something that I should get. This will help you to avoid excess spending and impulse buying when building your wardrobe. You will also have time to go home and consider whether or not the item will actually be valuable and useful to you prior to making the purchase, therefore avoiding the cycle of waste. Now, I know that we tend to associate luxury with having everything available at our fingertips, and even in some cases having things in excess. But truly having luxury is as simple as not having to think so much about minute decisions in your day-to-day, such as getting dressed, because you made the conscious decision to choose quality in your life over owning more than you need. Learning to exercise control over your wardrobe instead of your style being controlled by influencers, marketing campaigns, that can save you time and energy that can be used elsewhere. So I really encourage you to take your time when it comes to evaluating what your style is. That way, you will not be the target of such campaigns and end up in this endless cycle of purchasing what you don't need, what doesn't suit your style, and what is unflattering. Now let's talk about how to avoid excessive spending. My advice, if you want to have the ability to wear most of your clothes all year long and save money, is to shop like it. I personally no longer like denim, a perfect item to wear all year, so I stay away from it. I only have 2 pairs of jeans. One is like a medium dark wash and the other is this retro light wash pair that I found at the thrift store. Instead, I like to buy trousers, and I focus on what can be worn all year if paired and layered properly. So this also means that I don't shy away from skirts, because what can you do with a skirt in the springtime? Wear it as is, but you can also wear a skirt in the winter if you layer it. This keeps me from excess spending in between the seasons. If I do make purchases between seasons, it's a few pieces rather than an entirely new set of clothes every time the weather changes, which is exactly what I used to do. So what does this look like? Start with your wish list. We talked about this. List everything that you would like to have in your wardrobe, anything that you feel like would make it complete. Then in the same way that you tried on those clothes to find your style, you shop for those specific items. Try them all with other items you already own. As a general rule of thumb, anything I buy has to pair with 5 or more other items in my wardrobe. Otherwise, it's a waste. This can mean picking up some pieces from your closet to take with you every time you go shopping. This seems crazy, but it's actually a really good strategy to ensure versatility in your wardrobe. The worst thing you can do is to buy more items that can only be worn with very specific pieces or that don't go well with other things in your closet. It's like starting the cycle all over again. Sometimes we're so excited about the ability to purchase something new that we ignore the fact that it may not actually contribute any real value to our wardrobe. So taking pieces from home for your shopping trip keeps us accountable to only buying what's necessary and leaving what may be cute or ideal but may not be realistic of an option for us. We also have to consider making it a regular habit to only purchase what we love. If you don't love it, it will be a waste of your money. You will avoid wearing it, and you will likely get rid of it just as quickly as you purchased it. Or worse, hold on to it for a long time because of the guilt you feel from spending your money on it in the first place. Now, this is a bonus section on where to shop. This will vary based on what you choose as your style. But I will emphasize here, quality is more important than quantity, no matter what style you choose. There are some fabrics and textures that are always going to be superior. Cotton, wool, silk, linen, cashmere, for instance. These are going to be better investments than polyester, spandex, and acrylic mixes. The former will cost you more money, but they will last longer and provide better wear and durability over time. Also, they will look like higher quality items because they are, and therefore elevate your look overall. Just remember, being cheap is always more expensive in the long run. That said, whether you purchase new or secondhand, be sure to focus on the quality of products that you're purchasing. Don't pay much attention to the name brand or specific stores unless they have a reputation for always delivering quality products. For example, I purchase a lot of items secondhand. Luxury and quality does not mean you have to pay retail full price, but I have certain brands that I consider to be really reliable, and I often look for them when I do shop. And even when I do shop for these brands, I still look at the product label. Stores that you choose to shop at will vary based on your style preference, but I think it is good to mention some of the places you may want to avoid and why. I would say skip fast fashion places whenever you can. Places like Forever 21 or H&M, Zara even, Topshop, Shein, especially places that have the same types of clothing as these places, but they're an online boutique just marking up the prices. Typically, the quality is poor and the markup makes you pay more than what the product is actually worth, which isn't much. Also, these items rarely make it past 1 or 2 seasons in your closet. As a note, 10 years ago, Zara had a much better quality selection than they do today. I'm not sure what happened, but I just want to clarify why it's important to trust reading the label over the brand identity. I would also avoid multiple department stores, places like Walmart, Target, and Big Lots. These places are more like factories, and if you check the label, you'll find that they too offer cheaply made products of poor fabric quality. If that's what you need and if that's what you can afford at the time, go for it. But if you want to get quality items and you don't want to constantly have to replace them, definitely avoid those places. I would also tread lightly in discount retailers. This doesn't mean don't shop there, but always check the label. For instance, places like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross, they can offer you savings on quality items, but much of what they sell nowadays is just overpriced, poor quality items, and oftentimes they're introducing their own lines into the store, which are filled with low quality items that look good and give you an affordable price option. If you shop at these places, again, pay attention to the fabric label on everything you purchase, because they also have become small warehouse dealers selling the same quality items that you find in these boutiques and fast fashion enterprises. Of course, you'll still find certain brands' quality there, but don't always count on it. Always make it a habit to know what fabric you're paying for when you buy an item. For basic clothing that's more classic in style, in other words, not trendy but still quality, obviously the places like J. Crew, Ralph Lauren, Brooks Brothers, they're great options. Rest assured that department stores like Macy's and Dillard's do still carry quality items similar to what you might find in Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's. But remember to always check your label, no matter the store, no matter the brand. There are high-end companies that are out here selling polyester and spandex, so please check the label. Now, here are a few places that you can look for good items secondhand. The first is going to be thrift stores and Goodwills in higher end areas of town specifically. These are places where donated items are more likely to be from affluent communities of people. I've always found this to be true. And I've found formal attire and outerwear in these environments for great prices, sometimes brand new with the tag still attached. And if you're really lucky, you'll find an entire wardrobe of things. I remember shopping in a Goodwill and I got about 4 button-up shirts from the same brand in the exact same size. It's almost as if these people empty out their closets at one particular time and they bring everything. So if you're lucky, you'll actually be able to find a slew of things in Goodwill or in a thrift store. Another option is consignment shops. They do have great deals, but you're obviously going to pay a little bit more there than you would at a thrift store or a Goodwill. Another one would be online merchants, places like Poshmark, which is one of my favorites, Mercari, eBay, and even Facebook Marketplace. I prefer online because you can literally filter whatever you're looking for to find the results more quickly, and you can also bargain with the sellers to save more money. Be sure to know your size when shopping online though. Now the other options would be garage and estate sales. You never know what you're going to find there. And then friends and family giving things away, especially your older relatives who may have vintage items. Now this all ties together in your actual life, because choosing something as simple as being less wasteful in your personal wardrobe can easily turn into being less wasteful in other areas of your life. The regular practice of mindful shopping will eventually cause you to be more mindful about things like what you eat, where you shop, what habits you indulge in, and even your home decor. This can just be attributed to the idea that how you do one thing is how you do everything. You're thinking more consciously about your closet, then suddenly you start to care more about having fewer useless items around your home, which will lead to you having less clutter in other people's personalities or trends in your home, and more things that are actually meaningful to you. Then you become comfortable not constantly shopping for new things. Then you find yourself being more realistic and simplistic in your dietary habits, all because you've been more mindful about shopping and your clothing. And maybe all of that won't happen, but it's pretty likely that it will. Mastering self-control over your wardrobe, something many of us treat disposably, can really have an impact on the way you live your life. So I encourage you to try this out, especially if you feel as though you're overwhelmed in other areas of your life. You just never know how much this can actually change your situation. This was a lengthier video than normal, but I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.